This is Stuff You Like, You Can Call Me Ursa, and it's a lot easier to make good choices when you have good priorities to start with. Okay, Order of the Phoenix, the plot, it goeth thusly. Voldemort is back. Very few people believe this, the Ministry of Magic not included. Politicians are interfering in education, the trio start a secret defense against the Dark Arts group, Voldemort is after a prophecy made about him, and Sirius dies. Right, priorities. Umbridge's priority is her own advancement, her ambition, her place in the Ministry. Not that advancement or ambition are necessarily bad priorities to have, but Umbridge is a sadist. A sweetly spoken, florals-loving bully who gets her kicks torturing school children. In the fandom, at least, I think she may be more hated than Voldemort for this reason. Voldemort's priority is the prophecy, and as with most of Voldemort's priorities, it is wrong-headed and does him no good. You set too much store by the prophecy, Dumbledore tells Harry in Half-Blood Prince. If Voldemort weren't so obsessed with the prophecy, then it wouldn't have come true in the first place. Umbridge and Voldemort differ in talent and degree, but in many ways they're quite similar, especially in that their priorities are very self-focused. Harry, Ron, Hermione, Dumbledore, and so on have priorities which are focused on other people. Dumbledore's priority is Harry's immediate happiness to the detriment of others. Hermione decides that there are things more important than homework. And Harry is persuaded to prioritise useful action. There is no point, everyone from Hermione to McGonagall tells him, in arguing with Umbridge. That will gain you nothing and lose you your evenings. Don't waste your breath and don't show your cards so easily. Time and energy, after all, are finite. You should use them wisely. Which isn't a bad life lesson, come to think of it. The scariest thing about Umbridge, and one of the reasons that she's so hated, is that she claims to be doing all of this stuff for the greater good. The Ministry's priority is stability and the happiness of the populace, which, while neither of those are bad priorities, are dangerous and misguided in this case, because there are more important things going on. But they aren't the only ones that make that mistake. Dumbledore does too, and with the noblest of intentions, which brings us to one of the big points that comes intertwined with one of the themes that we talked about back in episode 72. Because we talked about how a big theme of Harry Potter is how what you do is who you are. As in, your choices define you more than your starting stats. And our choices flow from our priorities, but even good priorities can give rise to bad choices. And yet, regardless of how bad the choices are, forgiveness is still possible. Dumbledore does some terrible things in his younger days. Snape is a Death Eater and is directly responsible for the death of Harry's parents. But the symbolism of Harry's second son being called Albus Severus Potter, it's a symbol of how Harry has forgiven them both, despite the bad things that they may have done to him. After all, if forgiveness weren't possible, then we'd all be screwed. Our priorities and our values determine our choices, but even good or neutral values can go bad. Ambition isn't bad, happiness isn't bad, stability isn't bad, telling the truth definitely isn't bad, but all of those things can be so if they come at too high a cost. And yet, forgiveness is still possible. Hermione's right about spew and house elf enslavement, and yet her approach wins her no favours and no support. Harry is right that Voldemort is back and Cedric Diggory was murdered by him, but shouting it at Umbridge gains him nothing. There is a better way of doing things. And this carries over into fandom too, and that old saw beloved of relationship counsellors everywhere. Would you rather be right or be together? Or, in this case, would you rather be right or be friends? Of course, in the case of fandom, the right answer to that depends on your priorities. After all, safe spaces do not need or want dissenters, but spaces in which changing people's minds is the goal need people whose minds could possibly be changed. The choice depends on the priority. Like, for example, a debate forum will obviously prioritise the safety of its members, but will welcome dissenting opinions as long as they are, reasonably polite and don't dissolve into personal attacks. Whereas a fanfiction forum will not, and quite rightly, welcome people who come in and go, fanfiction is evil and immoral and illegal and you should all be ashamed of yourselves, because the point of the board, its priority, is the sharing and critiquing and whatever of fanfiction. It's not, persuading people that fanfic is a legitimate thing. But of course, as we will discuss next time, fanfic is totally a legitimate thing. So you should keep an eye out in the next couple of weeks for episode 6 in the Harry Potter series, which I have entitled Harry Potter and the Half-Baked Premise. Oh, you guys, in case you didn't know, Channel Awesome, here we come.